to turn our wills, who made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. Step 4 says that we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Step 5 is we admitted to God, to ourselves, and another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Step 6 is we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Step 7 is humbly ask him to remove all our shortcomings. Step 8 says make a list of all the persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Step 9 is we make direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Then step 10 continues by saying, continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Step 11 is sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him. And then step 12 is having had a spiritual awakening. As a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Now, in all of these steps, we will see that they refer to as alcohol, but we can replace alcohol with addiction, whether it is with drugs or alcohol or over-the-counter medicine. So it applies to everybody that is suffering with the disease of addiction. Now, the 12 steps is part of our 5 pillars, and I'm sure that everybody can remember that we've had a meeting about the 5 pillars, and it was explained, and I would like you to just familiarize yourselves around Stepwork so that when your loved one or the person that is in addiction speaks about Stepwork, you are more aware of what it means and what is expected and the whole process of his journey. Now, I personally refer to the 12 steps as, the blueprint to recovery, because I believe that if you follow these steps and you are willing, open-minded, and honest, then you have a very good chance of staying clean or sober for the rest of your life. And with that, obviously, then comes the 5 pillars, like I've mentioned. But, okay, so if we can move to the next slide, I want to just discuss the significance of family support that you guys have, just to make you guys aware of the part that you guys are playing. It reads here, family support is important in addiction recovery because it can reduce the risk of relapse in recovery. It can lead to a lifelong healing, provide motivation, encouragement, and accountability, help the person concentrate on their goals and remain committed to their recovery. And then the next page, it continues by saying the family members can help their loved ones to achieve and maintain sobriety. And despite seeing a loved one struggle, family members can and ideally do play a major role in the treatment process. And the role of the family in addiction recovery is large and very important. Now, I highlighted these, the significance of you as a family, so that you can just see that when the loved one speaks about step work, and if he's on step 1 and he is struggling with step 3, and what is a higher power and how he struggles to connect, so that you guys can just be there and support him and to better understand the step work language, if you will, to support the loved one. So if we can go over into step 1, we are going to just discuss it. I'm going to explain to you guys what it means, and I'm going to just mention the spiritual principles that goes with each step. Now, that is something that is a group on its own, but I'm going to bring it into the step work so that we can just kind of understand where we are and what is expected. So what happens is you come into treatment and you are met with a step one. Now, a step one is we admit that we were powerless over our alcohol or addiction or any other addiction like we've discussed, and that our lives had become unmanageable. Now, what I've seen is that clients come in and they know that there is a problem about his drinking or his using, but to him, it is not a real problem. To him, it is the solution to his problem. And it's actually a problem to the family. Now, a person like that can be in denial. Now, we have different levels of denial. So in order for a client to be helped out of the denial phase is to make him aware of consequences that he is facing because of addiction. We are making him aware by asking him to write a life story to just reflect back on his life and describe incidents where the loved one was busy using or drinking and all the behavior that followed that, and then as well to see the different consequences that comes with addiction. So for step one, we have to really, really put 100% into step one. Because if we don't really admit that we are powerless over my addiction and that my life has not become unmanageable, it is difficult then to put all of that. It's difficult to move on into step two if you are still in denial about certain areas of your addiction or in your life. So it is extremely important to do step one properly and to have the support with the counselors and the input with the rest of the team, as well as the clients themselves, to help a person out of denial and to see the reality of the addiction and the powerlessness and the unmanageability that his disease has caused him. And in order for a person to see that, he has to be open, he has to be willing, and he has to be open-minded. And yes, some of the loved ones say that they are there on their own free will, and that's good. That's good. I like that, and it helps them to take more responsibility for their addiction, if you will. And then with step one, the spiritual principle of step one is honesty. Now, like I said, to be honest about the problem, it's difficult. And I've seen that in treatment that whenever somebody comes in, he doesn't really disclose all of their addictions or everything that has happened. And it's a defense mechanism to stay in denial about something, to protect yourself, and just to protect yourself. And so that is step one. Now, step one takes different times for different clients. Some people come in and they can admit that, listen, this is what I'm using, this is where I'm from, this is what's been happening to me. I am unmanageable. My life has become unmanageable and I'm powerless over all these different types of addiction. And that is good. And there's other instances where we have to guide and just help to see the loved one different types of areas where he or she can be powerless. So that is step one in a nutshell. And it is, like I said, it is a very difficult step to do, but it is so important. And that is why we focus on step one. That is why we focus so much on step one, especially in primary care, so that the foundation is set, so that then when step two and the rest of the steps comes, they can build on top of that foundation. Now, what I've also seen in step one is, and that is what part of my presentation is, so that the family can be aware of their loved ones saying sorry over the phone, especially, feeling guilty and experiencing shame. So the first response to that is then to ask the family for forgiveness for things that they've done. Now, it is partially part of manipulation, because we ask for forgiveness, not really that we feel sorry about that. It is, we sit with this guilt and shame, and as soon as the family can say, listen, we understand, we forgive you, we automatically feel better about ourselves, and that causes us to forget what we've done. So in step 8 and step 9, we will focus on making amends, making a list of people we have harmed, and then making amends to those people, except when to do so would hurt them or others. So by making you aware of, people coming in and immediately on the first or second phone call saying, listen, mom, dad, I'm so sorry for this, and please forgive me, and I don't know what I was thinking, and all of those type of things. It's just a way of, feeling better about the shame and the guilt. So, yeah, that is step 1 in a nutshell. And then after step 1, we will go into step 2. Now, step 2 is, I want to say, as important as step 1. So what I'm actually trying to say is that all the steps are extremely important. And if you miss one step, then it is, it's not worth the paper that it's written on. And to do the step work, it's like a new lifestyle that you develop into becoming a new person, a different version of yourself, and to be clean and sober for the rest of your life, where you feel you don't have to use anything, to the place where you are in recovery for the rest of your life. Now, step 2 says that we come to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Now, there's a lot of questions with regards to the power greater than ourselves. Now, what we are facing here with is a higher power, something that can help you to stay clean and sober for the rest of your life, something other than yourself. What I need from the client is to believe in something other than himself in order to help him to stay clean and sober. And if they struggle to find a higher power, most clients that I've dealt with also then look up to the fellowship as a higher power, people that can help him to stay clean and sober up until he can find himself a different higher power, whether it is God or something else. What I want him to realize is that by him believing in himself is what brought him into treatment, and that there is hope. Now, when I say hope, I'm also speaking about the spiritual principle of step 2. Now, there is definitely hope for somebody that comes out of addiction and that has lived that life, coming into treatment. And like I said, step 1, you sit with shame and guilt, and you feel as if the world is against you. You don't understand, and then eventually when step 2 kicks in and you've realized that your life has become unmanageable and that you are powerless over your addiction, then hope kicks in by coming to believe that there is something greater than myself that could restore me to sanity. Now, if we look at the second part of the sentence, it says there that we could restore us to sanity, which means that in our addiction, we were insane. And that itself is a hard pill to swallow, because how can I refer to myself as being an insane? But if we look at the behavior and we make the clients aware of the behavior and they know exactly what the definition for insanity is, they can start to realize that, what I've been doing over and over and over in my life, at my work, with regards to my family, my relationship with my partner, my friends, and expecting a different result is somebody that is not really sane. So by coming to believe that there is a power greater than myself that could restore me to sanity. Now that is step 2. That is a very important step. So there is definitely hope. And the responsibility to come to believe that there is a power greater than ourselves falls 100% on the client or the loved one. And so when we come to believe that there is something greater than myself that can help me to stay clean, or help me to stay sober, or help me not to drink just for today, then it creates hope. There is hope. I don't have to be in addiction for the rest of my life. So when there's hope, then it is exciting. So then we will go on into step 3. Okay, so step 3 reads, we made a decision to turn our wills and our lives over to the care of God as they understood him. Now, I want to just go to the second part of the sentence, and it says there that to the care of God as we understand him. Now, this care of God is what we have realized in step 2. Now, if we don't do step 2 properly and we rely on ourselves, this God that they speak about in step 3 then becomes yourself again. So in order to fully grasp and understand step 3, we have to make sure that step 2 is 100% in place, and that you are busy with a relationship with your higher power that is busy helping you, guiding you, and supporting you in everything. Now, in step 3, we turn our wills and our lives over to the care of God, of our understanding. So what we essentially do is we give everything about ourselves over to the care of God. Now, sometimes I ask a client to make me a list of things he would like to turn over to the care of God. Now, it's one thing to make a list of, listen, I need to turn my will around with regards to my program. I want my program to be 21 days, and then I want this and this and this. So let's make a list of things that I need to turn over. And it's my program, for instance, my past and everything that goes with it, my future, and all these type of things. And with that comes obviously the relationships. Now, as soon as we have that list, we need to then spiritually or physically then go and hand it over to the care of God of our understanding. It is something that you have to go and physically do and say, listen, when I have this in my hand, this happens. And because I've seen in step 1 that I am powerless and my life has become unmanageable, that I really can't control the disease of addiction, and that I need help. In step 2, we come to believe that there is something that can help. And in step 3, we see that there's something that can help, and then we rely on that higher power to help us, and we ask for help. Now, the spiritual principle for step 3 is to surrender. Now, surrendering is to surrender yourself so that you can what's the word that I'm looking for? You surrender, Dominique. What is the word that I'm looking for? You surrender to?
You surrender to God's will, really. So it's kind of like letting go of control. I get where you're trying to go, and I can't think of the word either, but it's you surrendering to something greater than yourself, because you can no longer control your life or your decisions. And nothing, everything is kind of going a bit pear-shaped. So you have to be able to surrender to something higher or greater than you to kind of guide you through life. I don't know if that makes sense.
That makes perfectly sense. Yes, today we were busy with occupational therapy, and I read one of the logos that they were busy with, and it said surrendering to win. And to surrender your life and to the care of God is for you to eventually then to win your life back. So then when we go into step 4, it reads that
Sorry, Edwin. There we go.
No, I understand. It reads that we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Now, in this step, it is where we are provided with an opportunity to write down all of our resentments, everything that has happened in your life that you have a resentment towards, whether it is family, friends, primary school, high school, what happened there, while you were in university, after university, your partner, everything that goes with that. You have an opportunity to put your pen to paper and receive and almost gain freedom from everything that you are writing down. All these resentments will obviously then also cause you to have different emotions coming up, because now, while you're writing about it, you are being specific, writing about things that has happened in your life. And then it's almost like you will relive all of those incidents. And yes, emotions will come up. And it is difficult for loved ones to write about past experiences, resentments, and everything that goes with that. And when we are busy with your step 4, the spiritual principle that goes with that is it's courage, to really have the courage to go back and to face all of those resentments, and not being able to find any way of escape while you're busy dealing with your step 4. Now, step 4 might, like I said, each step takes different times for different clients, and some people write step 4 and then they say, listen, I've had enough, I need a break. And, it depends on person to person. So what I'm trying to say is step 4 is an opportunity for a loved one to get everything out of his heart onto papers, to reveal himself. And like it says, make a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Whatever you've gone through, what has happened to you, resentment, somebody that hurt you, that ex-girlfriend, that friend of yours, whatever happened in primary school, after school, and everything is now put on paper. And by writing it down, you receive a certain amount of freedom and healing, if you will, by writing everything down. And it's almost like journaling, writing everything down, and you read whatever you are writing, and you come to terms with, holy moly, look at this. So you realize a lot about yourself, and you will see that you get to know yourself on a deeper level. And then when we are done with step 4, we will then use our step 4 to go on into your step 5. Now, in step 5, it says that we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Now, what it means here is that we take our step 4, everything that we have written down on paper, and then we bring it to somebody, a sponsor or a counselor, or somebody that you can present it to. Then you read it out loud to that person. So you admit to God, to your higher power, to yourself, and to another human being the exact nature of your wrong. Now, it's one thing for a client to write everything down on a piece of paper, but it's a different thing admitting it out loud to yourself and another human being and to God. And for some people, some of the steps are more difficult than others. I've found and I've seen that step 5 is difficult for a client, because all of those emotions that you experience while writing all of those resentments is illuminated in step 5 while you're busy reading it out loud. And by doing so, as well, like I've said, you take responsibility for yourself, and by seeing it, it's almost like you take responsibility for your piece of the pie, saying, okay, listen, this is what happened, and if I didn't do this would have never happened. So I have a resentment towards that person, and if I look at it objectively, I realize a couple of things about myself and how I can find different ways of coping with life. So yes, in step 5, it is spiritual principle of step 5 is integrity. Now, integrity is doing the right thing even though nobody is looking, and it's easy when people are looking and there's clients around you and people are watching, and then I've seen clients do the right thing, but you get tested when there's nobody looking and you have to do the right thing. And that is where I've spoken about that it becomes a new way of life. It's a new lifestyle, the recovery and using the step work. Okay, so in step 5, when we're done with step 5 and we have presented it, the person that you are presenting your step 5 to will sit and make notes. And out of your step 5, step 6 reads, "We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character." Now, I want to just come back to the word of God, and it says that we're entirely ready to have God. So we can see that we rely on God again. And that is why it's so important for step 2 to come to realize that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. And the more solid relationship you have with your higher power, it will be easier for you to carry it on and to rely on somebody else to help you and to guide you, because now I can learn to trust in somebody else rather than myself. And that is very important. Now, step 6 says we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Now, when they speak about these defects of character, it is everything that you've written down in your step 4. Now you present it in your step 5. And when you present it, you're being made aware of different character defects that you have. Now, we have a lot of different character defects, but we also have a lot of character assets. So the aim is to acknowledge and take responsibility for different character defects in your life and to replace it with character assets. And it also develops a new coping mechanism. Yeah. Whenever you see that, I'm in a situation and I can identify 2 or 3 of my character defects and they're popping up and it hasn't been serving me all my life. So there's new ways of implementing different character assets in order for you to add value to your life. So it is a part where you can just change behavior, knowingly saying, listen, if I do this and follow my character defect, my consequences are A, B, and C. But if I choose to make a difference and alter my behavior, my consequences will be A, B, and C, and it will be in a positive manner. So we are entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. So we, again, rely on God for his guidance and for help. Now, in step 6, we have a spiritual principle, and it's called willingness. Now, we have to be willing. And we have to be willing to ask God to remove all the character defects. And it just reminds me of how important it is to be honest in all of your step work, because the level of honesty you present with from step 1 it shows throughout your step work. And yes, it is possible to go back into step 1 and say, okay, listen, I've missed this and this. And we encourage it to do that. But the level of honesty is very important to reach the goal of to stay clean and sober for the rest of your life and to step into this new lifestyle and in recovery, connecting to your fellowship and applying all of your 5 pillars. So that is step 6. Dominique, what do you think about step 6? And not relying on God.
Look, I think with step 6, it's because a lot of the steps, kind of the way they're positioned in the way that they are supposed to, well, they're positioned in a way that's I don't know, very strategic, if I can call it that way. And once you go through the 4 and 5 process and you've identified all those defects of character, what it does is it creates the awareness of the behavior. So without being able to see the behavior, you can't make any changes. But also, it's something that you can't do by yourself. And when we look at the word God, it doesn't necessarily, and I know Edwin's kind of mentioned, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're speaking of one specific God. It can be whatever they believe in. Because you trying to change it by yourself is again a form of control, and that doesn't work in recovery. You need to be able to trust that something better is going to help you to alleviate the consequences and that come from the behaviors. I love step 6 because it really does create that awareness of what you need to change in terms of your behavior and your defects. It's beautiful because it kind of, and it's a painful step to go through. It's not easy for people to look at their defects and look at their behavior and their parts in situations, but it's really great because the relief then comes in step 7, which Edwin will explain, where those shortcomings get removed.
Yes, thank you, Dominic. I agree with you. Step work, it's not easy. There's not a step in the 12 steps where you can sit back and say, you know what, this is the easiest step for me. So it is hard work, it is commitment, and again, it's open-mindedness, willingness, and honesty that will help you go through this. Now, when we get to step 7, it reads, we humbly ask him to remove all of our shortcomings. Now, again, this him is the higher power that we refer to. It is the same higher power that we got to know in step 2, where we come to believe that there is something greater than myself that could restore me to sanity. Now, when they speak about humbly ask him to remove all of our shortcomings, it is again, it's a higher power, relying on your higher power to remove your shortcomings. And it is again coming to a place and writing it down and say, these are my shortcomings, these are my defects, these are my character defects, this is my thinking patterns, this is things that I'm struggling with. And, humbly come to a place where you can practice humility by saying, help, I need my higher power to remove my shortcomings. And a lot of the times you have to swallow your pride to get to this place. But that is where the spiritual principle of step 7 comes in, and it is humility. Having the humility to get to a place and say, listen, you know what, these shortcomings of mine haven't been serving me. It hasn't been adding any value to my life. Step 1 showed me that I am powerless over my addiction and that my life has become unmanageable. And my shortcomings isn't serving me anymore. It is in actual fact causing me every time to go into this spiraling road down into addiction or alcoholism and pursuing and going deeper into the disease of addiction. So step 7 is then to humbly ask him, to physically ask your higher power to remove these shortcomings. Okay, and then after step 7, we will go into step 8. Now, step 8 says, we made a list of all the persons we had harmed and become willing to make amends to them all. Now, there's 2 parts in this step 8. First part is we make a list of people that we've harmed. So we make a list of everybody that we have harmed, and then we think about it, and we remember about that ex-girlfriend, or what happened with your brother, or what happened with your parents, or whatever happened while you were busy playing rugby, or whatever the case might be, persons that you have harmed, and especially in your addiction. And then after you have made that list, the second part of step 8 is, we become willing to make amends to them. We get to a place where we see, okay, you know what? I want to go and say sorry. And by the time that we are in step 8, a lot of step work has been done. A lot of personal growth has been going on. Personal development has been going on. Doing the 5 pillars, it wasn't continuous thing. And by coming to a step like step 8, when you think about going to say sorry to family or to people that you have harmed, there's a deep sense of sincerity that comes with it, because eventually now we're not trying to make amends because we feel guilty or before we felt ashamed, like we've discussed in step 1. At step 8, it gets to a place where, you know what, I can see what I've done wrong. I can list things, and I've hurt people so much. And while I was in my addiction, I said this to my family. I stole that from my mom. And coming into step 8, we make a list of all those people we have harmed, especially in our addiction. And then the second part is to become willing, saying, okay, listen, you know what? I want to go and say sorry to those people. Now, I've hurt them. I can take responsibility for that. And it's part of my recovery to go and make amends to them all. Now, like I've said, a lot of the times I've seen, and from the client side or from the loved one side, trying to say sorry before the step, saying sorry because of an emotion that's maybe, like we've said, shame or guilt or regret or unforgiveness towards self. So we tend to then just ask for forgiveness in order to feel better about what I've done. Not because we are really sorry, not because we don't, not because we wanted to really make amends. It is for self-gain, so that I can feel better, so that my family can either provide me with tax shop money or help me with this account or whatever the case might be, so that we can start to build on that relationship again. So what I'm trying to say is to say sorry, anything before step 8 is part of a client or a loved one trying to manipulate. And I'm not saying that this is in the case for everybody. This is just what I've seen working with the step work and all of these years of working with clients. And the other thing is, the other side of the same coin is, I've also had family members coming to me and saying, Edwin, listen, my son stole this, he broke into that, he pawned that, and he lost his job, and he's been there with you guys for an X amount of time, and he doesn't even seem sorry. He doesn't show any remorse. What is wrong? He's spoken to me over the phone and he's not saying sorry. Now, we have cases like that as well. So what I'm trying to show you guys is that in the step work, we allow in a certain step 8 and step 9, to make a list of the people we have harmed and then become willing to make amends to them all. That is the second part. So that when we eventually make amends in step 9, let's just go over into step 9, and it says there, make direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Now, that list that we've made in step 8, we've made that list, and the second part of step 8 says that we become willing to make amends to them all. We become willing to go and say that we are sorry. Now, in step 9, it says that we take action of step 8. And it says they make direct amends to such people wherever possible. So then the client is expected to go and physically make amends to different people. Now, it also says there wherever possible. It's not always possible to go and say make amends to somebody that lives far away and you can't see them because they're now they're in Switzerland, or whatever the case might be, or you have lost somebody and you've lost somebody and they're not alive anymore. So it's not possible for you to go and make amends to them all. So, and then it also says there, except when to do so would injure them or others. Now, it's not about being physically injured. It's being emotionally injured by somebody making amends to you. So I've heard people writing letters, going to the family, making amends, sitting, reading out loud whatever has been written, or I've seen people phoning on a video call when you can't get to them. And there's different ways of making step 9 work. And it is only in step 9 that we come to a place where we really take responsibility and say, listen, you know what? I've made my list of people that I've harmed. And I'm willing to go and say that I'm really, really sorry. And by doing it in step 8 and step 9, you get to a place where you really, really mean it, and that you are really making amends without any other objective in mind to gain from it. It's not a place where you are emotionally being manipulated. So in step 8 and step 9, there's a huge amount of growth and that can take place. And especially when family, when there's an opportunity for the client or for the loved one to come and make amends, it is very special. But we also have to address the fact that some cases that by making amends, somebody might turn around and say, listen, you know what, I hear what you're saying, what you've done, I don't agree with it. And, you know, I don't care what you have to say. You know, please, can you leave my office? Or please, can you leave me alone? You know, you've hurt me so much. So please turn around and leave me alone. So that also happens. Now, the step 8 and step 9 is not for the other people in your life, for them to go and feel better about themselves. Step 8 and step 9 is designed for you to take responsibility for you, and then to go and say that, listen, I need to make amends, and this is the people that I've harmed, and sincerely going and doing it practically, you know, taking action into step 9. Dominique, do you have anything to say around step 8 and step 9 and just making amends?
Yeah, so I think for me, it is a difficult step, but it's a beautiful step to do, because it's kind of you starting to mend the wreckage of your past. You know, and for your loved one, it's for their process to actually go and make amends and take responsibility for their behavior and what they've done to those around them. Because it's very easy for them to say sorry. It's very easy to go, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. It was a mistake. I didn't mean to do that. That's very, but I'm sure most of you on this group have heard sorry so many times that it doesn't touch sides. So I think, you know, with step 9, it's about them actually taking responsibility. You know, I'm sorry that I hurt you because I was this way, or I did this, or this is why I did it, or, you know, just taking that responsibility is the most important thing, because that's, along with honesty, I think that's the next most important thing in recovery is for your loved ones to actually start taking responsibility for their behavior. And I think that's something that step 8 and 9 does kind of teach them or help them to do. Edwin, there is a comment here from Liz. I'm having trouble connecting and or communicating with my loved one after coming out of changes. I feel like I'm stepping on eggshells.
Okay, yeah, that is that needs to be discussed. That is something that you guys, I personally feel you guys have to go and sit down and discuss all the concerns. By walking on eggshells is never healthy for anybody in the household or in this relationship. And I'm not entirely sure what happened. But yeah, I'm sorry that you have to go and walk around on eggshells around somebody that came out of treatment. That is not healthy. That's not supposed to do like that. And I feel, yeah, that is what I think.
I think as well, it's about, you know, having that clear communication with your loved one, setting those boundaries and just saying, you know, I feel like I have to walk on eggshells around you because of X, Y, Z. You know, maybe could they communicate with you better? I think it's like Edwin says, sit down, have the conversation, clear communication, healthy boundaries, and just say, look, you're not prepared to kind of walk around on eggshells. You know, set some boundaries with them and just kind of be open with the communication, because I find that helps. Because if you're constantly walking on eggshells around that person, it might make them feel a certain way or uncomfortable, and it's going to make you uncomfortable, then it makes the whole living situation uncomfortable. So rather just be open and upfront and have that clear communication and set those boundaries, if that makes sense. I hope that helped you, Liz.
Okay, just to add in there, sorry, Edwin, I just wanted to say also, I'd be aware of what your fear is, because walking on eggshells is you withholding something or feeling as though you can't say stuff or can't communicate. So if you're uncertain, you know, you can speak to your counselor, whoever was the counselor back at Changes, to help you with that. But I'd also be aware of what your fear is and maybe address that with the individual. So I think, to reiterate Dom and Edwin's point, that open and clear communication needs to happen on return, what the expectations are, who's expecting what from whom, what they're needing from you in terms of their recovery process, etc.